Hello, I'm Wayne Visser. I'm Director of CSR International, and I'm here today in Kuala Lumpur with Dr. Tan Lin Lah, who is the Executive Director for the UN Global Compact in Malaysia. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to start out just giving us an idea of where you think Malaysia is at in terms of corporate responsibility?
I think Malaysia is at a very exciting point at this moment in terms of corporate responsibility, because there's been a lot of media coverage last year and this year, so there's a lot of awareness among the public, and a lot of companies are being interested in that, and also our government are showing support with that, so it's at a very interesting juncture.
And what is it that companies are most concerned about here? Which sorts of issues are typically Malaysian issues?
The typical Malaysian issue will be more dealing with, because Malaysia is a trading nation, so a lot of our companies, when you're looking at exporting our products or services and looking at what international consumers are desiring, and as international consumers are asking for products and services from companies that are responsible, so the Malaysian companies are faced with the challenge or the issue of how do you respond to those. And so for our companies, what do you do when international consumers want those? Are you going to sign up and become a global compact signatory? Are you going to jump to the ISO 1400 just to comply with those? Or are you going to be genuine about it and be sustainable throughout all your operations and for a longer term?
Okay, so supply chain issues are a big factor here. Yeah, one of the ones that has been in the press lately, of course, is palm oil relating to Nestle.
Right.
What's your view on the Greenpeace campaign?
I think issues and concerns needs to be addressed, but I think perhaps sometimes we need to look at the manner that you go about addressing those, and what might be more effective in different cultural contexts. And so with that, sometimes it will be good and perhaps wise for some of this to be talked about with the concerned parties, not necessarily always in media, because it's a double-edged sword. It can always bring a lot of positive, or it can create a lot of negativism. Sometimes it's not helpful.
Okay. And some of the other issues have to do a lot with perhaps HR policies in Malaysia. How are companies responding on these?
HR policies, can you just elaborate?
Well, in terms of the history here of the affirmative action policies and the promised new economic model or plan that's coming out soon.
Oh, well, I'm still waiting for the new economic plan to be to see what that looks like. We are positive and hopeful about that. Each country has its historical context, and as the nation grows and its struggles, it's not without fault. It's not always easy, and it has to go through whatever it needs to go through. The issues, we deal with it the best that we can, and sometimes it's not necessarily easily understood from people outside. If they've gone through it, then they will insist you have to get through this stage. But if some countries have taken 100 and 200 years to go through that, but we have not maybe have that privilege yet. So we do whatever that we can in this context. Does that mean that we are not progressing? Right?
What are some examples of companies that you think are doing good things, best practices here in Malaysia?
In terms of corporate responsibility?
Yeah.
We have many companies here. For example, DG Telecommunications, they're part of Telenor Group. They're doing wonderful things in terms of particularly climate change, because they have a deep green project. Here they're doing in that particular area. We also have one travel agency who owns a hotel in Langkawi, Frangipani, and particularly that particular hotel, they're into ecotourism, eco hotel, so they won numerous awards with that. We also have Renhill Berhard, who sits on the steering committee of the CO water mandate. They're doing whatever they can in terms of water and sustainability in terms of that area. We also have a lot of our government-linked companies that are involved in specific projects that, in terms of just protecting the environment, some of the species that might be extinct. We also have a lot of corporate companies that are very aware of this and are doing whatever that they can. Small things like, maybe can be considered philanthropy, but we all begin somewhere. We also have one of our signatories who has been involved with, Vincent de Paul, an international non-government or civil society organization since, he was 19 years old. So we have a range of people, and there are some who are just beginning to, look at this and say, yeah, it's been there, part of our culture, part of our DNA, except that we don't call it corporate social responsibility, we don't call it corporate responsibility, nor do we call it sustainability, but it has been in our culture. We have the idea of taking care of the environment, of helping one another, of honoring your word, but we don't call it that. So there's a lot that is within our culture, within our value. It's just that we don't realize it, and perhaps we don't market it or we don't publicize it. But perhaps right now this is a good thing that as more and more people are aware of that, then we don't feel that we are so far behind. It's just same value, but maybe called differently.
Has the government here been doing anything that encourages companies on corporate responsibility?
The government here has been very supportive. I know that there was a CSR team that was set up in the Prime Minister's office in the Economic Planning Unit. And right now we have a ministry in terms of green technology. And the different ministries that are involved, there are different aspects that has got to do with being responsible. Perhaps, sometimes we are quicker to criticize than sometimes to, look at good things that's been done and move from there.
And am I correct that you have on the stock exchange here some kind of an index or a system that companies get rated on their performance?
The Securities Commission here do have a certain requirement for public listed companies to address in this particular area in your annual reports, and the Securities Commissions are quite specific in that, and public listed companies needs to comply with that, and the Securities Commission and Bursa Malaysia are very active in this particular area because they realize that it's an important issue to address, but to also perhaps instill within listed companies, because they're open to the public, and perhaps the responsibility, may be wider. Yeah.
And how do you see the agenda going forward? What are going to be the big priorities for the next few years for companies?
I think companies will want to be sustainable, and that has got to do with what international consumers or what their consumers would desire. When we have more and more consumers that are saying that we want to purchase products and services from companies that are responsible, not only in terms of being profitable, but also in a way takes care of environment and social aspects, then we will see the companies having to listen, because if not, they are not going to be there for a long time. Yeah?
Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.